In this video, we're going to show you how to install a motor, radiators, forks, and how to grease your steering stem bearings. Install the motor. Fortunately, on this 2007 Yamaha YZ125, this two-stroke motor is very light, easy maneuver, so just angle it in, bottom first. Four-stroke motors will tend to be a little bit heavier and a little bit more cumbersome to get into the frame. I simply just placed a block of wood so I keep the frame more upright. If you have the forks and wheels on, then it won't be so much of an issue with the frame moving around. Install the bottom two engine bolts. Now install the swing arm pivot bolt, which is going to attach the swing arm as well. And anytime there's movement around a bolt, you want to make sure to grease that so as to allow movement. I'm going to pound that in, replace the washer in the nut. And make sure to tighten it down to the proper torque spec found in your owner's manual, probably be around 60 foot-pounds. And these upper and lower engine mounts will probably be around 45 foot-pounds. The key is just waiting until you get all the bolts installed before you put that final torque on them. Now install the upper engine brackets with the bolts, washers, nuts, and torque to the proper value. Install the linkage. Since these are obviously moving parts, we want to put some grease on these bolts before we install it. And then lift the swing arm up out of the way, place the linkage into the frame, then install the bolt with the washer in the nut. Either way, you can win this exact 2007 YZ125 all rebuilt. Head over to patreon.com/themxfactory. Link is in the description below. Then go ahead and tighten and torque the nuts. Install the shifter and kickstarter. There's a bunch of little tiny spleens onto the shifter, so we always suggest installing it just so the shifter's slightly above the foot peg so you have plenty of room to get your boot under there, and then go ahead and reinstall the kickstarter. Install the electronics. This is obviously much different than today's modern bikes with so much going on. This is a pretty simple system just with your ignition, your CDI box. So go ahead and install the ignition coil onto the frame using that little frame mount. And on this back bolt, do make sure that you get the ground wire into the 8mm bolt. Pop the spark plug cap on and place the CDI box back onto the bracket. This is where it's always handy to have a picture before you took it apart so you understand where the wires go as you're installing them. And all the connectors are either yellow, gray, or light gray. Very easy to see which go to which, and there's only 3 connectors. Install the radiators. Doesn't really matter which side you start with first. I'm just choosing the left side. I'll place those 3 8mm bolts on. There's one behind here. Before I install the right radiator, I'm just making sure that the kill switch and all the wiring just get handled and taken care of and placed appropriately so they're out of the way during the radiator installation. Now install the right radiator. Make sure to connect the radiators and connect all the hoses before you actually bolt it onto the frame. Route the overflow tube kind of behind the radiator fins there. Once everything's where it needs to be, then go ahead and install the 3 8mm bolts. And tighten up all the hose clamps. And the radiator fins just clip on nice and easy. Grease and install the steering stem. Make sure all your parts that you're about to install are nice and clean. Now place grease on the actual steering stem bearings. It's no need to actually put grease on the stem, but once you get grease onto those bearings, make sure to spin them around a bunch so you're covering all areas of the bearing. Now place the steering stem clamp back into the frame. Go ahead and install the upper bearing, the dust seal, the washer, and the lock nut. I just use a flathead and a hammer to tighten this. I usually tighten it all the way and then just back it off 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn. Or just refer to your owner's manual for the proper torque spec, and then install the upper clamp, washer, and nut. Install your forks. Doesn't matter which side goes in first, just install it through the bottom and upper clamp, and then just slightly tighten down one of the clamp bolts just to make sure that the fork stays there and doesn't move, and then do that on the other side. Now I can tighten down my steering stem bolt and make sure that the fork heights are even and the same. I use this line as a reference, which is on most forks. When the forks are higher in the clamps, that means that you have a tighter turning radius. When the forks are lower in the clamps, you have more high-speed stability. Then torque down all the clamp bolts. On some bikes, the upper and lower mounts will differ, so check your owner's manual. Thanks so much for watching episode number 6 of our YZ125 bike giveaway. Make sure to click that Patreon link to see how you can win this bike. More videos to your right. Subscribe, and if you liked it, give us a like. We'll see you soon.